Welcome to the Divine Gossip Podcast. I'm your host, Mackenzie Foster, a professional psychic medium, tarot reader, and spiritual mentor, here to provide you with the next steps towards your dream reality, along with clarity and deep validation while on your spiritual journey. I have an immense passion for all things paranormal, spiritual, and of course, having some super fun chats with incredibly knowledgeable people. In each episode, we will expand our minds, ignite our inner psychics, embrace our spiritual awakening journeys, and live a super grounded, witchy life. I hope you learned something new in today's episode. Hello, and welcome back to the Divine Gossip Podcast. I hope everyone's doing very well. Happy Tuesday. I have a very, very special guest with me, Elisa, who is my yoga actual queen and goddess. Elisa, why don't you tell us who you are, what you do, and all that jazz?
Sure. Being called a goddess is like so fancy to me.
It's the
I've been
truth.
working on harnessing my feminine energy, so embracing the goddess.
Mhm.
My name is Elisa. I have an LLC local in Hampton Roads, Elisa Marie Yoga, and so I bring yoga in right now primarily non-traditional venues or locations to broaden the aperture of availability and accessibility to yoga. Maybe if the studio setting is intimidating, for example. So I've done a lot of pop-ups and have worked with other practitioners in the area, some of mutual friends of ours. And I will soon be teaching more regularly, though, in a studio space at the Holistic Treehouse. So
Yeah.
looking forward to that. But yoga is definitely something that's near and dear to me. And so I'm really excited to be sharing with you on this podcast with all your followers and friends, but also to bring it to the community here. I felt like I was meant to come here a year ago when I came, and I've just have flourished in relationships and spirituality in this endeavor that I didn't expect. So I'm really excited about today with you.
Oh my God, yeah, you're so cool. I
Please.
I for everyone who doesn't know, yes. So we have a lot of mutual friends. Megan Fekin with Rooted in Reality. She's my best friend. I post about her probably every day.
She is
But
she is the real cool.
she is the real cool one. She's our boss. She's the hierarchy.
Let me
Um,
tell you.
but so she just opened a local space here in Virginia Beach, or no, it's in Chesapeake, isn't it?
Yeah. Hmm.
In Chesapeake, the Holistic Treehouse. So Elisa will be teaching yoga there coming up soon. And um, when I say Elisa's yoga is the yoga that made me like yoga again. I'm dead serious. I love your classes. I always say that to you. And I always hear such good feedback from your teachings. Um, you have a real gift of guiding people through yoga in a very like non-judgmental way. Like I feel like if I just laid there the whole time, you'd be like, you did great, like and you would mean
Yeah,
it.
I do. Yeah. Yeah, that means a lot to
You
me because, of course, sometimes we have imposter syndrome. And sometimes, as I was saying, embracing the feminine energy, I have high masculine energy. So sometimes I come in and I walk in like, oh, I'm here and I'm going to do my thing and I'm going to instruct and be open. But if you heard what was going on in my head about 2 hours before I teach, sometimes you'd be like, who are you? You know,
oh yeah.
so so that means a lot to me because I'm a Virgo by nature. So I walk through like, let's make this really difficult and be
Oh
pro.
yeah. Yep. Yep.
So coming to teach students, I don't know what it is about intuition and universal energy, but I've really honed in on like people say I'm doing a great job. I have to believe I'm doing a great job. So it means a lot to get feedback from you and people like you and Megan, who I look at like inspirational human beings in my life. So it means a lot. But I really do mean it when I say if you just lay here and breathe the whole time, I'm here for it. Shoot,
Yeah. I
might join
believe
you.
literally that's why I love you. You're so real. You're so authentic. And thank you for saying that. I literally can relate to that so hard. We were just talking about the witchcraft workshop I just taught. If you heard my head literally 10 minutes before I started, oh my, Megan's little sister was there, Addison, and she heard all those thoughts out loud. Like I was just saying, like, I'm so nervous. Like I haven't done this in so long. Like, what if no one likes it? Blah, blah, blah. But I had like I feel like we have such good people around us that would be real with us. And we get such good feedback. And at some point you just have to believe it.
Eva, I know you
I
do. Yeah.
know, I know.
There's this book that I love that helped me reframe stress. It's The Upside of Stress. I hope there's clip notes out there because I'm really not the reader that people think I am. I audiobook and then maybe look at a couple pages and I'm like, ooh, I need to highlight that to retain. But The Upside of Stress really helped me refrain my nervous energy to be excitement or my nervous system preparing me for something that's important to me. When someone isn't there to whisper those things to me in person, right? And I'm like, you know what? This person asked me to do it because they trust me. The people signed up because they're excited and they trust me. So why don't I just reframe this nervous energy to my body's preparing me and start pretending to believe and then actually believe what I'm feeding myself and what other people are feeding me. And then maybe it'll go well. And it always does.
Yes, absolutely. I wish we didn't have to go through that process.
I know.
We do.
I'll tell you, it gets easier because my day job is, it's like that all the time where I'm put in front of people to say things that they think are important that I have to believe is important, right? And it gets easier. I have found myself really watching my reaction with my breath, which is very yogic, right? And I'm like, okay, why are we breathing like this? Why are we thinking like this? Figure out the why. Believe what you need to believe. Slow it down. And then I get up there and people will be like, wow, you handled that so well. All those questions, you were so calm. You're not easily bothered. I'm like, whew, if you saw what was going on in my head. But I'm
Absolutely.
glad I'm able to get it together and start believing in my own empowerment to get myself to the more uncomfortable things, you know.
Yeah, and I love what you said, believe what you need to believe. Sometimes it's just got to be like that. You got to force yourself to do that. And not a lot of people have that self-awareness. And am I right in saying that yoga helped you develop that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean it when I say watching my breath. Your breath is your first indicator of what your reaction is. And there's a lot of science behind post-traumatic growth and where your breath was during the traumatic experience. And trauma is trauma to anybody, it's different, right? Like it depends on so many factors of what went on in your life. Stress can feel like trauma to some people versus a stressful environment to someone else can feel like normal. So watching your reaction while you're going through something stressful, or maybe just being under pressure, which is stress on your body. Slowing your reaction down by watching your breath, for example, or watching what your body language looks like can help you in future instances. And that's that post traumatic growth is like what happened then. Now I'm relating to the fact that I was able to control it. And some people need guidance, like formal yoga classes or formal therapy to do that for them. And I've had formal therapy, I've had formal yoga training, obviously. So I'm a little more self aware and able to watch that and watch what happens when I'm having a stress reaction, whether it's breath or body, and figure out what the root cause is by doing a little bit of internal digging, which is all of that speaks so much to the 8 limbs of yoga, which is much broader than asana yoga, which a lot of us practice more regularly. But even that in itself, that's what brings you to yoga, then that's your stepping stone, you know.
Elisa, why don't you have a podcast I could listen to for 24 hours straight?
Oh my gosh, because I never sit still. I
You really
never sit
don't.
still.
You don't have time for that.
I would have to be one where my hair is in the microphone, I'm in the woods walking, or I'm jumping onto a plane and I'm like, hold on a second, I'll be back in 2 hours after this flight. And then I'd be in a lounge eating good food and snorting my food down while it would be horrendous. That's why, because I'm never home. And in between that,
Oh,
I'd be teaching yoga. So it'd be like me on the way to yoga in
it
the
would be like
car,
a car
setting up.
podcast.
Yeah. Oh my God, it'd be horrendous. And I have an old car, so you would hear everything.
Oh yeah, great.
That is why that's why I need people like you to say, come share with me.
Yes, yes. I'm so glad we're doing this. Yeah, you're brilliant. That was a beautiful way to say all of that. So when did you get into all I know you said 2020, right? Did I just make that up or
So I would say 2020 is when I started really digging into my practice
okay.
because I really had to. I didn't have a choice. I think I was going through and you would know better than me, the night of the dark. What am I thinking?
The dark, Dark Night of Soul. There we
Yeah,
go.
that one. That's the one. I had some of the words. Really, since I was young, looking back now, because of course I've done all the reflection, yoga teacher training really allows you that space to do that too. In fact, I would recommend, even if you don't want to teach, if you're wanting to dive into yoga, find a practitioner you trust, take their yoga teacher training. You don't have to walk away as an instructor or a teacher, but you learn so much about yoga in that closed door environment. It's almost like going to school, right? Like you have that critical thinking hat on for that specific subject. But I really think, as I look back, that yoga was a part of my entire life because my grandmother was doing asana, and I would see her and just be like, what are these old lady exercises she's doing? Like she was just very strategic with her breath work and her movement every day, like just lifting the knees up, bending the knees in a different way, opening the arms, opening the heart space. And I would watch her and just like be waiting right like in the other room for her to make me some delicious Indian food. So I have Indian heritage. Hindu heritage, but I was not introduced to that until actually my grandmother's passing full circle. So, and then I look at my mother too, and they have lived such a stressful life. I really think this is the most calm part of my mother's life, right? And she's in her 60s. It's a lot of stress to endure your entire life. And her reaction was always very graceful. I think she watched her own reaction. My mom would not say she's a practitioner of yoga. It's probably not actually not even a word in her vocabulary. But I think if she were to hone in and look at what a big part of that is in her just heritage and daily upbringing, I think I've had yoga in my whole life. But it really wasn't until when I was going through the night of the dark soul, which the dark,
Dark
what was
night
it?
of the soul.
That one, the dark night of the soul. I didn't realize that either. Someone had brought it up to me, but I was exiting a very toxic, abusive, emotionally abusive marriage and a very toxic, emotionally abusive work environment that, in my mind, were my forevers. Both of them were my forevers. I was so passionate about my job. I was passionate about I wouldn't have got married if I wasn't right. And I felt like I was married to this job. I loved them both. And I thrived when it was going well, but what I was doing was trying to fix when it wasn't. And I started practicing asana yoga regularly during that time. So I was going to a studio at 5 in the morning before I went to work, which would kind of reset my battlefield for the work ahead and whatever toxicity or unsafe environment I would experience, which again would allow me to kind of bring some recognition to my reaction to that. And then I would do it at 6 p.m. every night before I went home and was living in that toxic environment too. And I really think I was just going through the motions, like literal going through the motions of physical body yoga, asana practice. And I was connecting the movement with my body and my mind with my body and my breath and all of that too. But I didn't realize the deeper effect of a meditative practice, right? Like what that really was doing. And I think when I talk about post-traumatic growth, I have a lot of people that say, wow, I can't believe all you've done since you changed your life, since I exited, because I really divorced my ex-husband and my job at the same time and moved across the world. And here we are now. So I think back of that post-traumatic growth and how much at the time I didn't recognize how much that's allowed me to grow. And I've always had the mindset since a young age. And again, I think it's from heritage of me saying things to myself like my energy isn't worth being spent this way. I mean, at a very young age, like I remember being in a locker room with my girlfriends from high school and saying things like this. How can I flip our perspective on this? Where's the positive outlook on this? How can I redirect my energy and outlook on it? I've always had that mindset, probably being surrounded by people who are doing that around me, right? Like our experiences totally shape our actions in our own lives. But in 2020, through COVID, I really, and even really right before then, when I started feeling like I have to divorce this lifestyle to be healthier, that's when my asana practice got heavy. And then from there, it's like a whirlwind of fire. When I moved to Virginia in 2021, and coincidentally, my instructor, I was in Japan working overseas. My instructor from Japan moved to the same location as me. And I know,
What?
shout out to Alexis Miller. She is amazing. She's on YouTube. She has a podcast too. Amazing yoga practitioner. I know, oddly enough, and this is too like where yoga and doing that self study, that's a huge part of yoga too, is in finding purity in relationships and just building an abundant lifestyle for yourself is on the last class she taught. And she lived actually in military environments overseas. You live very close together. She lived in my neighborhood, but we never really talked outside of yoga class. And I just went up to her and I just said, I have to thank you. You didn't know this, but I've been going through a divorce. I've been divorcing my job. And your practice has brought me purity into each daily phase of my life that I have to go through. So you can imagine as a yoga instructor, like her immense love for hearing that. And she said, "Oh, are you leaving?" I said, "I'm leaving. I'm moving to Northern Virginia." She said, "No way. I'm moving in like 6 months to Northern Virginia." "Where are you moving?" "Same town." Crazy, right?
Wow, insane.
So I get to Northern Virginia. Of course, I'm looking for yoga. I find yoga in the park. As you know, I love the outdoors. So
You do?
let me go outside, meet a yoga studio owner, and he says, "I'm looking for instructors. You know anyone?" I said, "I do." So then Alexis started teaching at my studio that I was going to. And she was only there for 1 year. And when she left, there was an instructor named Amber who replaced her. Shout out to Amber as well. And that was my yoga teacher trainer years forward. So
Wow.
she is a huge yoga mentor for me. She has dove into yoga for over a decade, maybe almost 2 decades now, for her own self healing and self recovery. Is truly walks through the daily life of a yogi. And she was offering yoga teacher training this last year, and I decided as a Virgo, I have to do everything practically,
Yeah.
methodically.
Yeah.
I knew enough about all the things, so now I could take yoga teacher training and actually focus on the teaching part because
Yeah.
I was never interested in teaching before, but based upon how much it has helped me, guided me, healed me, I decided that I think it's time for me to actually jump into yoga teacher training where I feel like I can focus on the teaching part. Versus, like I said earlier, I do recommend though people want to just learn about yoga in a closed environment. You can also do it for that because it's still broadened my aperture of the systematic history of yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga, etc. But if you can't tell, I'm passionate about it.
I love this is exactly why I started the podcast, is I love hearing people talk about what they love and what they know the most about. What an incredible journey you have
I
been
know I say my stars have aligned because, and some of it was hard work behind me, right? Like I
on, of
had to
course.
make those fostering relationships. I had to dig in and get to know Amber as my yoga mentor a little bit better, to understand and to trust her to guide me through a yoga teacher experience. And, I had to connect the lines between Alexis and meet this new studio. So I've done some of the work, but again, I've always believed in abundance, and I might have not said it like that, but as I was going through these motions of moving across the world, leaving my old life behind, I would tell myself, what's the worst that could happen? Or what's the best that could happen? You know what I mean? Like the grass will be greener, and if it's not, I can change again. And so it's just really having that focused intention. And sometimes you might bring that into meditation or prayer, whatever your active connecting is and turning inward. But really believing in like what is the best that could happen.
Yeah,
So the best that could happen, I feel like thank goodness it's happened for me, even bringing me here years later as a yoga teacher. But you're sometimes we tell ourselves a really old story, and if I kept telling myself the old story of the life I lived in, I could still be there. But I
absolutely.
just to start building this new story in my head and believing in it and making moves. It wasn't that graceful. It was step by step, right? I felt like I had a little bit of mental health blockages in the way, some physical body blockages in the way because energy was stored in places and not moving fluidly. But so thankful that I've been brought here and this community in particular, like as you know, because you're immersed in it. And I mean, we just met not even a year ago. I met Megan maybe a year ago because I'm coming up on my 1 year of living here, so not even a year ago. And the list of names goes on of people in this community, even that I've been able to foster relationships with to deepen my own spiritual practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here.
Beautiful thing.
So the most like inspirational like thing that stuck out to me was the fact that you were in a home environment that you weren't enjoying, that wasn't for your best and highest good, right? And then same as your job. And I really admire that you respected and honored the practice so hard that you trusted it enough to like lean on in those times, because that's a lot of like determination to improve your life, is to try something new and open yourself up to a new practice. And for those who don't know, what do you say, asana yoga, is that how you say it?
Yeah, asana is the word for posture. And so here we really reflect on looking at yoga as postural, physical body practice. But when we think of asana yoga from bigger yoga philosophy scope, it's really understanding the interconnectedness of yoga being the union of the body, the mind, the spirit, the breath. And with asana yoga in particular, it came after yoga, which was traditionally just a seated, concentrated, focused meditation. And yogis of a different lifetime, right? Like thousands of years ago, we're talking like 6,000 years ago,
So cool.
um, recognized that when their mind was in a state of maybe non-empowerment or in a state of attachment to something, or their ego wasn't vibing with them. I'm sure they used different language back then, but they weren't enlightened. They recognized the impact that that had on their body. So what their body was experiencing was similar to the lack of cleanliness in their mind. Their body was feeling either tense in a way or sick in a way, had ailments. And so they recognized that, oh, there's energy stored in our body too that we have to release. So there was a connection of the mind and the body and the breath. And so if you think about it, being like the word posture, traditionally in asana meant seated again, and just having good posture with it. But then movement came as well. And that's a whole another branch of yoga too, right? Within asana. So it's really being like seated inward in your mind, and seated as a metaphor of how are you in your mind, in your body. So in yoga practice, and the way I teach is I don't say a lot of like the real fluff and stuff. I might say something really inspiring at the end or the beginning, but and it's still most of the time stolen words from somebody else along the way. But um, I really am focusing on the steadiness, listening to people's breath. Are you being steady in your breath? Because if you're being steady in your breath, you're being steady in your mind. You're holding your postures in a strengthening way so you can actually connect your body with the surface beneath you and focus on the alignment of your energy centers. So when I say seated in your mind, also moving in your mind too, using broader term for asana, but how are you being in your mind, in your body? Because a lot will tell me a lot as an instructor of where my pace of the class needs to go, what the students at large need to receive, etc. But asana practice is definitely the practice of the West. But there's so much more trickled into that.
Oh yeah, that it's funny you're like mentioning how that's just like a little part of it. 'Cause my next question was going to be, I hear a lot about how yoga is physical but also mental, obviously. So can you speak to more of the different areas of how yoga affects our lives? Because it's not just a physical practice, right?
Right. Yeah. So like you'll hear a lot of like, how are you practicing yoga off the mat?
Yeah.
Right. And like the analogy I'll use is like you can bring this with you off the mat. The calm, the stillness, the lack of attachment to expectations and anticipation for what's next. There's nothing wrong with teaching a sequence class where the students have an opportunity to memorize it and quote unquote get better at it. But it doesn't quite offer the philosophical view of yoga of being just being and not anticipating. And it is fun sometimes to see even myself when I'm taking a yoga class and practicing yoga, getting attached to, oh, we're going into triangle. Oh, shoot, no, we're not, like, oh, I'm definitely attached to what I thought was next, and I'm
Yeah.
not being because I'm obviously thinking ahead. But yoga off the mat, and this is part of the 8 limbs. And this is why I love yoga too as a Virgo, because it set up a path for me to learn something and I can count numbers and follow it.
Oh my
It's not
God,
that
that's
easy.
so Virgo.
Yeah, it's not that easy, but having 8 limbs and having them systematically aligned with one another, they all are so broad and philosophical. It's like almost like I feel like sometimes I'm reading Romeo and Juliet and I'm like, what did that just say?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure, but the yamas and niyamas in particular, which are the first and second limbs of yoga, I'm not sure if you're familiar,
I'm not.
but it just means, oh gosh, girl, you could dive in and we'll just do the bottom line up front, the bluff today. But it's really the rules of conduct. Then the yamas being almost like social ethics, like how am I relating to the external world? How am I relating to others? And those I'll just run through them is nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, moderation, and generosity. There's other terms used for them, but those are kind of an easy way to understand them. But like nonviolence is like self-love. If you're loving yourself, how are you portraying love on others? So it's not literally being like, don't do the non-violent act, fill in the blank. But how are you being to yourself so that you can be nonviolent or self-loving with others? Are you acting with compassion and catching yourself when you're not? And maybe finding the why, because it could be rooted to something 15 years ago
Mm-hmm.
and working on that. So the ethics of like going down the list of like truthfulness, are we being truthful with ourselves so we can accept people's truth? Can we be open to someone else's truth if it's not our truth? And I mean, that's a whole conversation that I think many people need to have sometimes because we can be friends amongst our personal beliefs.
Yes.
um, and then non-stealing is like, again, generosity, like not non-stealing in a sense of like, hey, girl, I like that plant behind you. I'm going to take it when I visit and I'm not going to tell you about it. But also like not stealing time or energy from people, like showing up in a way that you know you need to show up and giving them space and being generous, being thankful for what you have and thankful for yourself in many ways. And then we talk about moderation in yoga. It talks a lot about sexual energy, and I think that makes people feel uncomfortable. But sexual energy is one of our highest, most powerful forms of energy. So it's more about moderation or celibacy and a broader term of how can we harness energy that's high, one being sexual, specific, and yoga talks about that, to use it for other things and be moderate with it. So using our energy in ways that are more fruitful for us and to serve and be aligned with others as others and outside world are part of our life. And then finally, the last one is generosity, but the way that yogic text actually talks about it is non-possessiveness or abundance. So, like being happy with what we have, being just offering yourself some contentness with what you have and what others are offering to you. So, not getting too caught up, understanding that you are enough and you are enough for the person that needs you, right? Like, how many times are we like, ooh, I wish I could change this, or I wish I could change that person's perspective or even their character? Like, good luck, good luck. And it's okay to have those aspirations, but don't get so possessive over what you want when you can recognize that it's enough. That's just the yamas, right? That's just the yamas of how we're interacting with the external world as part of an ethical act. And then the niyamas are a little bit different because they're more like observances or like how we're being with ourselves in the internal world. And so one of them is purity. So how are we being pure with ourselves? Like looking at our body like a temple, really. I know you've heard that, right? Like, oh, my body is a temple. People say churches are temples. So how would we want whatever our source of temple is, whether a physical structure, if we look at our body, like, are we doing the things that are clean for ourselves? And we look at cleaning our spaces, cleaning our cars, and offering yourself that pure energy, maybe burning some sage after you do it, maybe taking a shower to purify the what happened before to what you're walking into. So purity is like what you make of it, but also looking at what you're ingesting for your physical body and in those senses. But being pure in your mind will come with those. There's another one with contentment, looking more inward as well, like offering gratitude for yourself. So not only just being you are enough, but offering that sense of gratitude as well. There's self-discipline, which yoga can teach you a lot, right? In class, when you're getting in your mind space, or maybe when you're in a balancing pose and you keep telling yourself you can't do it, or maybe you're not practicing anything else that seems like self-discipline. And so it's not coming to you easy in the postural pose. And that's because we're not looking inward with self-discipline. We're not challenging ourselves to be disciplined. It's kind of like I use the reference of like after college and I was told what to do all the time and had this really strict routine, and then no adults were there telling me what to do anymore. Like, how did I maintain my own discipline to go into work every day on time? And that's because I had to study myself, get to know myself. And the next one is actually self-study. So if we're starting to turn inward, and in our line of work, we do a lot of self-study because we have to show up regularly for other people. So if I'm not doing my own self-study, exploring myself, then how am I showing up for other people? How am I growing towards the source or sense of enlightenment that I want to empower other people to be that way? So observing my self-study could be simply I'm in the line at the grocery store and I'm feeling impatient. Why did I come to the grocery store to feel impatient and not be patient? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
why am I here right now then? And when I'm in the car and I'm frustrated because of traffic, like I live in Hampton Roads. I chose this life.
Right.
Like, let me go back up to contentment. And I love the life I live. Why am I frustrated on the road today?
Yeah,
Like,
that's not necessary. Yeah.
right. And then really self-studying in another sense is like allowing me to teach you about the yamas and niyamas, and you start reflecting on your own, being like, oh, yeah, maybe that's one I need to harness more,
Yeah.
and then finally, there's one that's surrender. And there's a lot of yogic philosophy, and even in your asana practice, that will tell you to surrender into the pose. Just let go, let it go. Feel the mat beneath your feet. Let it go. So surrendering is really just like celebrating what you have and cherishing that,
Hmm.
letting go of whatever's not serving you. So those, I'm really just brushing the top of them. But if you can imagine, there's books like on just one of the yamas.
Oh
It
my God.
goes deep. It goes deep. But that is to me more of the off the mat practice, the yamas and niyamas. Like, how are you walking through life? Um, are you being kind to yourself? And if you try to rush them, it will not be a graceful introduction. It's really just like just learning about yourself in a way that will allow you to have more space for yourself and others. And I have found that even in workplace, in intimate or in familial relationships, it's been so helpful for me to offer grace. Just purity alone is like it offers me a chance sometimes when you have maybe a family member or somebody who you pick, they're calling and you're like, oh gosh, they're calling again. It offers me a space to be like, let's open this with pure intentions. And what happened in the past conversation may not happen in the future. And I'm going to hold space for them because they're calling me. They could call anybody, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing all that. I think I need to
Yeah.
do yoga more.
No, girl, this is it. This is it. It's one,
Wow.
it finds you where it's supposed to find you. It
Wow.
finds,
I am like mind blown because I'm in college right now and I'm taking a philosophy class for the first time ever, and it's been my favorite thing. So it's been my favorite thing ever, and I started to get like philosophy books and like I'm really starting to learn, and I didn't realize that yoga was like all of that. I'm so excited now.
yeah, you could maybe write about yoga philosophy
Yeah,
in your
true.
paper, in
Right.
your for your class. Yeah.
Actually, a
It's
really good idea.
huge. Yeah, yeah, and I would offer you again that space to self-study while you're knocking something else out. If we're going to talk about Virgo-ness, that's how I roll. I'm like, how can I do seven things at once? Methodical.
Literally me, literally me. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, that's incredible. Wow. I want to also touch on because I feel like you mentioned it a little bit, but obviously yoga can help us do a lot of healing on an energetic and physical level. Can you speak more on how yoga can maybe help trauma and like how
Mhm.
it moves energy out of the body, like that kind of process, what that could look like for a student of yours or however,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
I'm not a clinical practitioner by any means, so I'm going to use like very basic terms and experiences.
Okay.
But people to also look into like clinical scientific things that are smarter than me that I can express, fluidly.
Fair.
But from a healing perspective, like I mentioned earlier, just through your breath work alone, and breath work in yoga is pranayama, which actually talks about energy being prana and the expansion of energy. And when they talk about it with yoga, they're talking about harnessing your breath to expand that energy. So I know I talked earlier about post-traumatic growth, and there's a lot of science behind slowing down the breath during traumatic experiences can offer you space for post-traumatic growth.
Yeah.
But also understanding that we have a nervous system that's a sympathetic fight or flight. So anytime we're under stress, under pressure, which if you think about today's modern world, I go into work 40 plus hours a week, I'm under pressure. My sympathetic nervous system is high. I come home, I have chores to do, it's high. The times that I'm enacting my parasympathetic nervous system, which allows me to rest and digest, um, I should do more often, to be honest. And I think
Yeah.
we all need to harness that. But yoga offers us a path to enable our parasympathetic nervous system, which allows us to slow down our breath, slow down our heart rate, and start healing some of that stressful pent up energy that we have. So just an asana practice alone can offer you that. And I mean it when I say, and you know this, and we talked about this earlier, and I have people that have done this in class to say, and I teach outside a lot, if you want to lay down and look at the sky and watch the clouds pass, as long as you're breathing, that is movement in your body. You're practicing yoga, even yoga asana, because you're in a posture being that you're lying down, you're focusing on your breath, So that alone, if we talk about meditation, people often say, well, my mind races in meditation, I can't meditate. Well, it's really more about what you're doing with those thoughts in the racing mind. Are you catching it and having something to focus on, even if it's counting to 4 in your breathing or focusing on your breathing, or if you're playing some kind of music or sound bowls in the background and you're saying, hey, thought, I hear you, I see you, I'm going to focus on this sound. You're teaching your muscle memory how to do that, which can be very healing to settle the mind. And then we're starting to balance our nervous systems. Again, a lot of us are imbalanced. I would even like to say I'm imbalanced, which is why we had to cancel the last time we did this because I was getting sick, right? And imbalance is our body showing up with a cold, physical pain. I recently had a very bad bout of back pain because I've been moving so much with my day job, traveling, which are fruitful experiences, but I'm not harnessing the rest in between that I should. So my body is saying, hey, you're in balance, slow down or else, you know? So it definitely offers space for healing the physical. I can tell you it heals my physical body. I was going to chiropractic every week until I started doing yoga teacher training, which forced me to do 200 hours in a very short amount of time of just asana practice. So, and some reading and some things like that. So, gosh, by month one, I was like, I don't need this chiropractor anymore. And I love chiropractic care and I still see it occasionally, but my body was in alignment. It was healed, and then let me start with the chakras, because with the chakras, your energy centers are all becoming aligned, whether it's meditation, breath work, moving the body, having your sense of what is divine, right? Which is your own sense of universe, God, whatever you believe in. It could be a star, whatever you believe in, I'm accepting of. But having that in alignment with your body, your breath, and your mind can be very healing. If we look at the human body and how we can slow it down so that we can rest and recover. And sometimes in yoga practice, final relaxation can be really difficult. I am obviously very high energy, if you can't tell. And
No, me too.
uncaffeinated 100% of the time, unless I'm on vacation, then I allow myself to have some caffeine. I might have green tea on like a Wednesday, and I'm like this. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
impressive.
yeah, I'm very high energy. Like I have to
I feel
have a very strict nighttime routine to actually get some rest. So final relaxation once upon a time was hard for me. And then, but as a Virgo, teach me why. Teach me how to be systematic about it. And now, I understand that I have to let that energy go down beneath me, beneath my mat, allow my nervous system to slow down and allow it to become balanced because of that. And I think I personally, like my health is so important to me and I strive for that balance because I know what it can mean for my physical, mental, body health, spiritual health. And so I think once you look at the perspective of being balanced, and how that can offer you space for healing, even if you're in the process of healing, then yoga would be a great avenue to consider.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very, very helpful information. Would you say yoga has, obviously, I feel like this is yes, but would you say yoga has helped you heal your trauma in your body? Like you felt that healing in your own body?
Yeah, in many ways. In many ways. Like I said, with the physical body, yes. When I used to have to go,
Yes.
I was a person who had frequent low back, sciatic pain, and which is like the nerve that shoots down your leg. It's awful. And just being in better alignment, but also learning how to harness my breath, putting my mind's eye in a specific place of my body and doing some deep breathing and recognizing the heat that can bring to that place, which can be really healing. I have IBS, which to me is a term of like, we're not quite sure what's wrong with you, but your body doesn't like things that you ingest.
Oh, yeah.
And your anxious energy is stored in your solar plexus. That's what I'm like. That's what my IBS is. So, yeah, absolutely. So I've learned how to harness that in meditation, which is yoga. I've learned what postures will bring me whichever chakra I think is unaligned. I definitely focus on solar plexus in my own practice because I am nervous by nature. I take tiger's eye with me everywhere. It's always with me. And but I've been invited to teach for different organizations that are saying I'm trying really work on grounding. The purpose of this is grounding. So there are yoga postures for specific chakra energy balancing. And so I've used that with my own practice as well and offered it to people who are seeking it. So sometimes they might even not know why I'm cueing what I'm cueing or why I'm putting you in these postures that may not be part of your traditional practice, but some of it is to help really offer yourself breath in that specific place that's more exposed or that it's grounded in the moment. But for me, yes, yoga has been probably the largest modality of healing for me. I love therapy of all means. If I could have a therapist best friend that would see me every day, I would. But communicative therapy is hard for me because my throat chakra was blocked as a child. It was blocked as a young adult. I work in a male-dominated society, and I'm quite younger than a lot of my colleague peers. And so I think with some of that, I had lost my voice, but I've now known how to harness that through some yoga therapy more than I feel like communicative therapy has served me. But I am a huge advocate of it for people who are more vocal than me and aren't so much in their head, which is my problem, which is why my solar plexus is mad all the time. So yeah, yoga for me has been a huge healing modality. And when I was going through the night of the darkness of the night. Did I get it?
No, not even close.
What was this? What is this?
Dark Night of the Soul.
That one. That's
Yeah,
the one. This is why we need each other.
we truly do. Yeah.
When I was going through that, my solar plexus broke. As that, and that's why someone's like, you're going through this. I just exited that toxic lifestyle and I really harnessed meditation then. That's when I really picked up a meditative practice outside of just practicing breathing in locations like on an airplane, right? Like sometimes I'll be like, okay, let's do some pranayama on this airplane. Let's calm down. I used to be a runner. Let me use pranayama on the race, calm your mind down, your body will start to work, but that's when I really started doing seated meditation. And I just learn meditation through doing non-guided silent, which I know can be difficult for people, but actually what's difficult for me is guided meditation. And so I've been trying to move that into my routine a little bit now that I guide meditation to make sure that I'm doing things that people would maybe like Bryce. So,
Yeah.
but that to me is like, I don't think in my life, I've done a lot of great things with myself, but I don't think I ever just sat with myself. Like
Mm.
the doing part can get really distracting and your five senses are typically involved. Like I'm seeing cool things. And so all the things that weren't cool are just like, well, this thing's cool. It's right in front of me. And ooh, this is cool food. And, I think sitting with myself and realizing that like, oh, you have some blocked energy space and you just let go of things that maybe you need to reflect on and actually grieve. And I feel like the meditative part of yoga really offered me healing there.
I really strongly relate to the solar plexus thing. I feel the same way. And thank you for all those personal examples because I feel like everyone says healing trauma, but it's so hard for us to like actually understand what that looks like and what it can, like the process of that and all that, because we're not taught any of that, obviously.
Yeah.
If someone was just starting yoga, what would you tell them? Like, do you have any advice for beginners? Like, what would you need to hear at the beginning?
What I wish I knew is I wish that I knew that I had been practicing some form of yoga all along, is not to let the word yoga intimidate you because we look at in this Western culture, unless you come from a place that is like really great and empowering and you've learned all sorts of cultural things. Sometimes we look at like, oh, the studio and I have to go. I would say the philosophical part has been so great for me. So it can be as easy as going on YouTube and YouTubing the word yoga if you're intimidated to get into a studio. I have some YouTube channels that I love, like Yoga with Cassandra. She's one of my favorites. I
Okay.
would say that our styles of teaching are reflective of each other. It's very slow and intentional, and there's little bouts of philosophy. There's also a black girl yogi. I think her name is Nico. She's great. Obviously, Alexis Miller. I'm going to shout out to her and my trainer Amber. They're great. I could maybe give you the links if you want to post it with this.
Please.
But it's easy enough to do on your own. But yoga and a lot of meditative communities abroad are about community. So harnessing that energy in your own space, but also with community. And so that's why I think where the studio has such a magical place, or finding yoga like that, I do pop up that's outside with more than one person, right? It doesn't have to be in a studio environment, but find a friend who you know is already doing it that you trust, or find a friend like me who has FOMO, make it sound cool, and they'll join you, So, but the intimidation factor is real because social norms are real. So, like if you have some social anxiety, that's where yoga in our Western world can feel a little intimidating, but there's so many ways to bring yoga to your life that are outside of that window of a studio that I would encourage people to explore. And there's so many accessible ways now to do it. And just believing that you're already doing it, you're breathing. That's again when people come to class and they're like, I've never done yoga before. I don't think I'm good at it. I'm like, can you breathe? Do you breathe? Do you practice any form of slowing down? Yeah, we're going to do yoga today. And that can be your form of yoga. Even if you are in child's pose for 75% of the class, you're breathing in child's pose and you're feeling the mat under your fingertips. So don't be intimidated by the word yoga. And if you find an intimidating atmosphere, which I recently experienced somebody saying, I don't go back to yoga because the instructor kept correcting me in an unkind way, and I felt like I wasn't good at it, and it wasn't an environment that was welcoming. There are environments that are much more about the philosophy of yoga, letting you find yourself on your own path with guidance if you want from an instructor. But I really think that underutilizes the yoga that's online or in communities that are non-traditional. In Richmond, too, Virginia, they have an awesome community of donation-based yoga at community centers, outdoor parks, and all that, just like we do here. And so it's not hard to find if you're really seeking it.
Cool. Thank you. That was like so helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
You
of course.
answered questions so well. I love your Virgo. And
Like connect
like
all the dots.
it's incredible. Like the way you talk, so like you didn't even fucking stutter once. Like I just love you. You're so cool.
In my mind, I might have.
Hey, we didn't hear it. That's
Where
all.
is your tell me about your sun and moon.
I'm a Cancer Sun and Aries Moon, Sag rising.
Isn't Megan's also a Cancer sun, right?
Yeah, she's a Cancer too. Yeah.
So we're a bit similar then because I'm a Virgo sun and I have a fiery moon in Leo. So I
Oh,
love that like you and Megan are very like you're almost like the people that I'm like, I need a hug and you're the one who I want it from. Like because I
I
know
would
that
say that to her. Yeah.
both of you are so empathetic, but like there's something fiery about your chart for sure because you're so driven and that's for my Leo is like, oh, I'm gonna nail this. I'm gonna
Oh
nail
yeah.
it, but I'm gonna nail it methodically.
Oh yeah. No, let me tell you something. So my Mars and Mercury are in Leo.
Oh
So
wow.
I
Oh
have
dang.
so much fire, and my only
Yeah.
Virgo placement is in Jupiter. So I found that the way I like expand my capacity is very methodical. Like
Yeah.
I love a to-do list. I love a methodical, planned out step-by-step thing on how I'm going to get what I want. Like it's
Yep.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I that's why I love how your brain works because I have so much energy because I'm so fiery and my brain
Yeah.
works so fast. I'm like I listen to everything on like two times speed. So the way you talk,
Yeah.
like I'm so locked in.
I've actually heard from friends that are like, "Are you speeding up your microphone because you're talking so fast?" I'm like, "No, are you speeding it up?" They're like, "No, it's on one times." Because now you can speed it up to one or
Yes.
two times. And I'm like, "No, that's just me."
Oh my
I
God,
guess.
that's so me. Oh my God. The other day, my mom said that. So I've been smoking weed recently, like for the first
Uh-huh.
time. So I've been way more chill, right? And she
She's
was like,
noticed.
"Oh yeah." The other day, I came down like a little toasty, and then she was like, "Wow, you're so chill. Like normally you walk around like this all the time." I was like, "Oh
That's so
God."
funny. Yeah, I've had to harness settling, and I have done that in the last couple of years. So it's still my daily life and my day job do not allow me much subtleness. It's
Yeah.
just a busy atmosphere, and so I really have to make it an intentional part of my routine. I have a dedicated space in my home to meditate, and so that space is kept cleansed, and I go into it cleansed so that I can actually. Because with me, I'm like, let me finish 7,000 productive things before I do my next productive thing. And one of those, sometimes I can add meditation to my productive list. And I've recently stopped doing the lists. I've recently stopped rushing, like intentionally stopped rushing. Like I'm really grateful that in this work environment I have, it's the opposite of toxic. I can tell my boss, hey, I have a lot going on after work on Thursday. So on Friday, I'm going to come in at whatever time after I wake up naturally by like 6:30 anyway, right? I'm gonna just come in the office when I come in. I will get you my 40 hours this week. And I have a great supervisor who's like, I trust you. Your performance is showing it. Why do we rush when we don't have to? You
So,
know?
yeah,
Um,
I
and
love.
and maybe some of it is that we're not asking for that support on the other end. Like I have an environment that we've all cultivated where we can ask for that too.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. I just pulled an oracle card this morning for myself, and it said, "Ask for what you need." Like
Mm.
you're the only one that's not. You're holding yourself back from getting what you need if you don't just say what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we can, and again, like with that purity, sometimes maybe that person, the reason why I dread answering the phone is because I haven't asked them for what I need, or I haven't told them why I'm having a hard time with our relationship, which is a sense of asking what I need from you in return of this reciprocative, loving relationship we should be having. So it's like really embracing the purity of we all have our own needs and wants. And they're not selfish, right? They're usually coming from an empathetic either for someone else or sympathetic for ourselves. So I'm so grateful that my life has brought me to a place where I have a partner who offers me space. God bless that man. He deals with me all the time.
Love him. We love him.
He's an Aries, but he's actually pretty calm and cool and collected. I'm the stronger personality somehow out of that, but in my job too, just I have amazing subordinate staff and colleagues and supervisors that offer me a super safe place that sometimes I'm like, pinch me, is this real? And
Yeah.
then, gosh, my community with my yoga community, all of you, it's the same. Like, I'm like, pinch me,
Mhm.
real. I mean, how great is my
Yeah, I
life?
literally, that's all I've been like posting about recently. That's all I can say recently is like, holy fuck, the people around us in this community, they're so genuine and you can say what you need and no one meets you with judgment and everyone has such an open heart. It's really cool. And I'm glad you're in it with me.
Same girl, super same, super
Thank
same.
you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of that with us. I
First.
know we literally only touched like not even the tip of the iceberg.
That's okay. That's why phase twos are a thing.
Yes, that's why the podcasts are a thing, so we can do
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. And I'm really proud of you for having a podcast, by the way. I've listened to your other episodes because as a Virgo, of course, I had to engage and prepare for just understanding how your podcasts, and I was just like, oh, they're just like fruitful conversations. That's great.
Yeah.
But I loved listening to your episodes, and I hope that you find pride and honor in offering that to other people too, because I found them to be very enriching.
Thank you so much for saying that. Oh my God.
You're welcome.
That felt
I mean
so
it.
good. That
Yeah,
felt
I mean
so
it.
good to hear. Thank you. Yeah, I love it. It's I like a few weeks ago had an interview just like this and it was such an inspiring conversation and I was like, this is why I do this podcast. I need to do this a million times more. So, thank you for
Yeah.
recognizing that.
Course, of course. And I'm hopefully going to see you soon and we'll do some yoga together and I can't wait for that either.
Yeah. Where can people find you if they want to work with you or learn more about you and stuff?
Sure. Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Elisa Marie Yoga LLC. I'm sure Mackenzie will have my name because, of course, my parents were both foreigners. I love them, but they didn't spell my name as it's pronounced. So, and then I also have an email, Lisa Marie Yoga LLC at gmail.com. I have a couple things coming up. It's all on my Instagram. I do a lot of pop up in between, so it may be updated before you get there. But I'd love for you to come out and stay tuned because I'm going to do some self-study and look into embracing my technological ineptness and gain some skills to prepare for some online stuff since it's getting cold out and the earth's
Yay!
cool energy is not so great for a yogic environment. So I'm
Yay!
going to start preparing for that.
Good. I'm very proud of you. Start preparing.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Studying and getting all your
Yes.
beautiful details in order.
You know it. Got to master it first. I might even do some piloting, so I'll invite you to the pilot ones that might not go well.
Oh yeah, please do. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I will. Oh my God, yeah. That's another thing. Is I want to be on people's podcasts too. I did that the other day and I was like, wait, I actually like being the
Aw,
non-host.
that's awesome. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Um, yeah, thank you so much again. And thank you everyone for listening. And I will see
Yeah, awesome.
you
Hope to
Tuesday.
find friends in all of you.
Yes. And rate and review the pod if you liked it. Reach out and ask, and we'll do another part if you want, if people like.
Absolutely. Of course. I'd love to.
All right, bye
If you
everyone.
enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to rate and review Divine Gossip on whatever platform you listened in on. Head to themackenziecollective.com to work with me further. If you have any questions or have any topics you want me to cover or any guests you want me to have on, please email all of that to info@themackenziecollective.com or go to the episode description to fill out my Google form. I love you. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode.